Welcome to your daily dose of sci-fi adventures. New stories dropped every single day. Smash that subscribe button and ring the to help us reach 1,000 subscribers and unlock even more epic cosmic tales. A brittle calm lay over the basalt plateau of Viridiax. As the triple suns dipped toward the horizon, bleeding amber light across scorched earth, jagged spires of blackened rock rose like the ribs of some ancient beast, each crowned with sentry. Turrets that trained their cobalt glow optics on the central amphitheater. From these turrets, the live broadcast feed streamed across the Imperium's vast communications grid. Carrying a singular message to billions, defiance would be met with annihilation. Captain Ilyana Voss stood at the precipice of the platform, boots planted firmly in the dust. Her ceramite armor was sculpted from the rare moon-forged ore of Gale IV, etched with the Imperial eagle and flush-mounted power conduits that pulsed rhythmically. At her back, at her side, the volley cannon hung poised, barrels still warm from the disciplinary volley that had silenced two mutinous sergeants. Only days before, discipline was everything to the Galactic soldiers, mercy, a luxury reserved for the truly worthy. Below the days, the boy waited. They had given him no name in the official communique, only a cold designation, Subject JT-117. But every eye that watched him recognized the face flickering on their holoscreens. Yarrick Talon, survivor of the Astoran rebellion, scion of legends whispered among insurgent cells. His once bright tunic was torn and stained. His wrists bore the fresh, angry marks of restraint cuffs. Yet he stood tall, chest forward, chin lifted as though addressing not the soldiers arrayed before him, but a congregation of unseen allies. Ilyana watched him for a long moment, seeking in his expression any sign of fear. Instead, she found something far more unsettling: unwavering resolve. Raiders in the outer sectors had bragged of the boy's supposed psionic resonance, an almost mystical power to bend energy with the force of his will. But none had witnessed anything beyond street fights and daring escapes. Now, in the dying light, Yarrick's aura spoke louder than rumors. Subject JT-117, Ilyana intoned, voice carrying easily to the hallowed silence. You stand convicted of sedition, incitement to revolution, and the unlawful use of psionic energies. The Imperial Senate has adjudged your punishment. You shall be executed in sight of the galaxy, that no torch of insurrection may flame in the dark again. A ripple passed through the assembled ranks, steel-clad troopers whose faces were hidden behind mirrored visors, their posture rigid with years of drilled obedience. Even the Centurion Guard, 5 meters tall and bristling with kinetic plate, shifted imperceptibly on his feet. Yarrick smiled then, a slow, radiant curve that seemed out of place on his gaunt features. You call it punishment, he said, voice ringing strangely clear through the comm ray. But remember this: the soul of Astora cannot be extinguished by your blades. His hand, bound at the wrist, flexed as though testing the strength that had carried him across war-torn worlds. Do what you must. From the command days, a lieutenant signaled. For executioners in midnight blue armor stepped forward, each carrying a heat-forged blade humming with violet energy. The crowd of admirals and senators, projected on the giant screens, leaned in anticipation. Among them, Chancellor Kale Voss narrowed his eyes, lips pursed. He was the architect of the purge, an opportunist who had risen through political bloodletting as fervently as any soldier did through combat. To him, Yarrick was the keystone. Eliminate the rumor of hope, and you cement your reign. Ilyana raised her hand, a subtle gesture, but enough to initiate the sequence. The blades ignited in unison, arcs of incandescent violet tracing deadly sigils in the air. Yarrick's eyes followed each spark with serene curiosity, as if he watched artists rehearsing. Strokes on a canvas, steel met flesh in a silent cascade. At once, the live feed showed every angle, the locamera mounted in the platform's base, the drone's overhead sweep, the trooper-borne eyepiece nestled at Ilyana's shoulder. The sensors captured heartbeat rhythms, skin temperature gradients, even bioelectric signals, data that would flood academic journals for cycles to come. Yet in the living moment, all that mattered was the finality. Yarrick whispered a single word undeciphered amid the hiss and crackle of energy. Then darkness. For a heartbeat, the broadcast signal stuttered. then steadied, revealing the aftermath. A still form draped in the boy's torn tunic, the blades extinguished, humming circuits dying back to metal. The platform was spotless, sterile even, as though memory itself had been scrubbed. The Chancellor's visage appeared on the main screen. "Let all who saw this know," his baritone intoned, "that the Empire's will is absolute. Obedience is life, rebellion, death." He paused, allowing the words to settle among the galaxies. "We have spoken." And with that, the feed switched to the Imperial anthem, tri-symphonic brass and choir, echoing through the void. Yet beneath the anthem's proud crescendo, something new stirred on the quantum subnetwork. A faint pulse, a timestamp beaconed, at 0 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds, echoing like the toll of a distant bell. In every control chamber, every monitoring hub, technicians froze at the sight. None understood its meaning. All would soon learn. The broadcast, the moment the blades retreated, the amphitheater fell into an uncanny hush. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the hum of power conduits cooling beneath Captain Voss's ceramite. Then the broadcast switch engaged, and across trillions of calm nodes the Imperium's decree blared to life. Signal ignition on the surface of Vulcar aboard a glinting starliner dozens of light-years distant. The first tone crackled through static. Communications Officer Saren Halpheus leaned forward, hand trembling over the control console. She toggled filters to scrub interference, but the image was already unmistakable. The charred days, the still form of JT-117's tunic, and the cold-faced Chancellor Voss proclaiming the Empire's ultimate authority. "Absolute. Obedience is life, rebellion, death," his voice echoed, elevated to cathedral reverberations by the broadcast's amplification protocol. Behind him, the holographic Imperial Eagle spun in ghostly orange light. Saren's jaw clenched. Across the room, soldiers lowered their heads. The Starliner's captain and ex-Imperial Marine savored a grim smile. "Let every world hear this and tremble," he growled. "You know your duty." Across the outer colonies on the farming moon, sirens rest. Halfway between the Horsehead Nebula and the outer rim, the feed arrived on a battered freighter's hololink. Vita Orlan, agronomist turned pilot, paused her harvest calculations. As the holoslate flickered, she'd been nurturing bioluminescent wheat for months, hoping to stave off famine on her home colony. Instead, she watched a child die. Presented as the price of peace, she pressed her palm to the glass viewport, where fields of golden stalks rippled in the sulfur breeze. Tears pooled as she listened to Voss's final words. In every syllable she heard a challenge: chase obedience and die, or defy and die by fire. Her heart nodded, but a spark ignited in her chest. If this is how they rule, perhaps it's time we answered. The scholar's dissection light years away in the spire of Cognos, the galaxy's greatest library archaeology, the broadcast was interpreted. Through layers of analysis, Archivist Prime Ilmaris Nkova enacted a rapid linguistic breakdown, transcribing JT-117's last whisper, a fragmentary psionic utterance, caught by ship-to-ship quantum channels. "Una vita per libertatem," she murmured as the ancient Terran phrase materialized on her console. "A life for liberty." Within seconds, her screens lit up with cross-references to pre-imperial resistance manifestos. The scholars erupted into heated debate. Some contended the boy had been indoctrinated. Others believed he had spontaneously channeled ancestral memories. But all agreed on one point: the broadcast was a masterstroke of terror and a glaring provocation. The underground network in hidden data havens beneath the crust of Ereshkigal. In tunnels carved long ago by refugees, the transmission became gospel. Hackers amplified the feed, weaving JT-117's final moments into artful montages set to outlawed revolutionary songs. They slapped holo posters in every market square they could reach, tagging them with the boy's visage and the cryptic timestamp: 0 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds. "Remember the boy, Red One," a close-up of his defiant eyes. "Remember the countdown." The underground spokesnet buzzed. Word spread that 8 minutes after the execution, something unimaginable would occur, and that only supporters of the rebellion would survive. Whether rumor or prophecy, it galvanized a dozen isolated cells into action. Imperial reaction back in the amphitheater's control tower. Captain Voss monitored the metrics, viewer counts spiking on every habitable world. Sentiment graphs oscillating. Between rage and fear, Chancellor Voss's office transmitted a curt memo. Commend Voss on flawless execution. Intensify security protocols on all precincts. Underneath, a single note in red. Investigate anomalies in subnetwork logs around the exact timestamp. Voss typed a formal acknowledgement, though her mind churned with doubts. She had obeyed orders, yet the boy's final words haunted her. Chronix. What psionic current did he unleash? She scanned the data readouts, subspace distortions, power surges, emergent code patterns she could not decrypt. She flagged the logs for the Imperial Inquisition, but feared what it might uncover. Echoes among the stars as the broadcast faded into simulcast loops. Every colony, outpost, and flagship found itself united in a storm of emotion. Some worlds mourned a child's life. Others exulted in the display of Imperial might. But beneath, the veneer of approval, a subtle undercurrent of unease rippled through circuits and souls alike. Across the galaxy, people whispered of the boy of Astor not as a criminal, but as a martyr. His final defiance immortalized in every viewer's mind. And somewhere, in the hidden sanctuaries of the rebellion, commanders studied the broadcasts, full-length recording, isolating the moment of his last breath and readying themselves for the storm they now believed was inevitable. The 8-minute silenceeth echo of the Imperial anthem still lingered in every mind. When the broadcast abruptly cut, in the amphitheater's bowels, technicians glanced at one another, screens dark, microphones muted. Above them, the master, BROADCAST node displayed a single, pulsing timestamp, 0 hours 1 minute and 0 seconds 1 minute past the boy's execution. And then, nothing. Minute 1. The omenal across the Imperium's realm, surface and orbit alike. Instruments detected a faint thermal anomaly on the volcanic plains of Perseus Prime. Temperature sensors ticked upward by fractions of a degree. The planet's domestic weather networks, normally soothing agricultural forecasts, issued terse bulletins. Anomalous spike in surface heat, source unknown. For the first time, civilians and soldiers alike felt a tremor of unease. In command bunkers, officers barked orders to verify sensor integrity, hoping this would prove a mere technical glitch. Minute 2, the grid flicker. 60 seconds later, the automated orbital defense grids around Coronia hummed with an unfamiliar resonance. Shield capacitors surged, diverting power from communications relays. Across every control console, readouts glowed, warning red, system overload. Fleet admirals cursed under their breath as lasers and railguns went offline. Ground radar blipped out, the sky emptied of friendly blips and hostile tracers alike. In the silent sky, the only sign of life was the hiss of overtaxed reactors. Minute 3, stellar fury on Valen's reach. The star itself seemed to awaken. Engineering crews on the surface cowered as the sky turned from pale gold to molten crimson. Then white-hot, solar observatories logged a sudden coronal flare of unprecedented magnitude. Shield generators strained under the stellar wind. Many failed outright, plunging cities into darkness. Panic spread through crowded streets as citizens groped for emergency shelters. None recalled any natural phenomenon matching such ferocity until they remembered the boy. And the TIMESTAMP. Minute 4, magma's crownal fay through the ominous. 8 minutes, Eurysseus' dormant magma vents roared to life. The sleeping volcano that had last erupted 100 years ago now spewed rivers of lava. Across vast basalt plateaus, cities built against the mountainsides cracked and crumbled. Highways folded like origami beneath the molten tide. Evacuation sirens wailed. But transportation networks already suffering from the grid failures collapsed. Under the weight of mass panic, pilots in stranded shuttles watched the horizon glow hellish orange. Powerless. Minute 5, lunar cataclysm. Orbit above Orion's gate, the accession moon fractured along tectonic fissures. Seismic sensors aboard the Resolute Dawn trembled violently. As the moon split into dozens of jagged shards, defensive missiles fired in futile arcs, vaporizing. On contact with invisible barriers that had enveloped the system moments before, meteoric debris rained down on the planet below, igniting fires in the once pristine highlands. Fleet commanders, eyes wide, whispered, "This is no accident." Minute 6, void incineration in the swirling expanse above Elysia, the flagship. Aurora's wrath registered a brilliant flash of flare so intense it blanked out all external sensors. The next moment, ships across the fleet reported crew members vanishing. As though consumed by invisible infernos, hull plating bubbled, internal. Cameras melted in their housings. Panic seized bridge officers as the flagship's logs recorded temperatures measured not in degrees, but in terakelvins. No distress calls escaped the vessels, only a fleeting, desperate silence. Minute 7. The pulse builds at 0 hours 7 minutes and 0 seconds. The timestamp blinked on every network node, now accompanied by a low-frequency resonance that thrummed through the ether. Technicians described it as a cosmic heartbeat, a deep, oscillating pulse that seemed to stretch across light years in a single rhythm. Power cores, fusion reactors, even the quantum drives of capital ships vibrated in response. Those attuned to the subtlest vibrations felt it in their bones, a call to witness an ending, or perhaps a beginning. Minute 8, conflagration then. At the final tick, 0 hours 8 minutes and 0 seconds, the galaxy itself appeared to ignite. From the scorched deserts of Viridiax to the lush biodomes of Oriel, planets burned in unison. Forests erupted in green-blue conflagrations as alien flora superheated. Oceans boiled, sending steam columns into stratospheres. Cities collapsed. In pillars of ash and dust, mountain ranges crumbled like sandcastles against the tide. Even the protective shields around habitable worlds proved ephemeral against the onslaught of planar fire. As the 8th minute concluded, every world under Imperial dominion lay in ashes. The lone broadcast node in the amphitheater flickered back to life, showing Captain Voss staring at her console in disbelief. On her screen, the same timestamp hovered, now followed by a final message in the boy's voice. Distorted yet unmistakable. "Remember me." The transmission ended. Silence reclaimed the void, deeper than any before it. In that silence, the ghost of Yarok Talon's defiance echoed louder than a supernova heralding the death of an empire and the birth of a legend. The aftermath, smoke and ash drifted through the void like mournful specters, swirling around shattered moons and drifting hulls that once belonged to the mightiest fleets in the galaxy. In the aftermath of the 8-minute cataclysm, the stars themselves seemed to dim in collective grief. What remained of imperial power lay in ruins, worlds reduced to cinders, orbital stations fractured like broken glass, and entire populations incinerated in the cosmic conflagration. Yet from the ashes of destruction, new embers of hope and vengeance began to glow. The ghost fleet drifting aimlessly through the charred remains of what had been the Aurora Armada. Captain Ilyana Voss hovered in her crippled flagship's command deck. The view screen revealed a panorama of drifting wrecks and drifting bodies caught in the cold expanse. Her ceramide armor, once a symbol of unassailable authority, now bore scorch marks and twisted cables where power conduits had shorted. She pressed a gloved hand to the console, triggering a feed of the final Imperial logs. They recorded not strategy or victory, but the dying whispers of crewmen consumed by the void. For weeks she remained in stasis, haunted by the boy's voice, echoing through her head, "Remember me." When she finally awoke, she deactivated the ship's dormant distress beacon and set a new course away from the heart of the conflagration and toward the uncharted fringes of space. There, beyond the reach of any flag or banner, she would seek the truth behind Yarok Talon's final act, how a single life, so brutally ended, could extinguish 1,000 worlds, embers of rebellion on worlds that had narrowly escaped total destruction, frontier colonies, and satellite moonlets shielded by geological quirk. Survivors clawed their way from shattered shelters, harvesters and miners, merchants and scholars, all emerged blinking into ashen sunlight, uncertainty etching deep lines across their faces. But amid the ruin, a spark of defiance burned bright. In the undercity warrens of Vespera, once a crown jewel of the Empire's cultural network, rebels galvanized survivors with clandestine broadcasts. They played Yarok's final message, spliced with footage of the 8-minute apocalypse, the lava flows, the burning oceans, the fracturing moons, across hidden channels. They urged people to forge a new alliance, not under an imperial edict, but by the will of free worlds, soon. Representatives from dozens of battered systems convened in secret enclaves, crafting the Charter of the Free Planets, a manifesto pledging mutual aid, collective defense, and respect for life above all. The Inquisition's last stand on the shattered citadel of High Voss, the Empire's bureaucratic capital. Chancellor Kael Voss retained a fraction of his former power. Amid crystal towers breached by flame and twisted steel, he holed up with the remnants of the Inquisition. But every corridor echoed with dissent. Every servant's glance carried fear or scorn. His orders to purge subversives went unheeded as soldiers deserted en masse, carrying uniforms emblazoned with the imperial eagle only to burn them in makeshift bonfires, stamping the ashes with the new sigil of the Free Planets, a simple star. Encircled by an open hand, realizing that his authority had crumbled beyond retrieval, Voss made one final gambit. He convened a holo summit, addressing what remained of his supporters. His voice, once commanding and cold, quavered as he pleaded for loyalty, promising retribution and restoration. But no response came. Static replaced every channel, and in the void that followed, as if mocking his impotence, Yarek's voice once more flickered into existence on the summit feed. Obedience is life rebellion. Death, Voss recoiled, his final faucet of legitimacy shattered beyond repair. The legend grows as news of the Emperor's collapse rippled outward. Bards and poets began to chant the ballad of the boy on the bridge, recounting how Yarek Talon's martyrdom had sparked the pyre that consumed the Empire. In taverns on backwater stations, holo impresarios reenacted his defiance, culminating in the all-consuming flame. Children tattooed the cryptic timestamp 0 hours 8 minutes and 0 seconds on their wrists, an enduring reminder that tyranny could be undone by a single act of courage. Academies reopened and liberated systems, teaching the life code, an ethical framework inspired by Yarek's last words, and the Charter of the Free Planets. A life for liberty became both creed and rallying cry, guiding reconstruction efforts and forging alliances across species and star systems. Archaeologists trekked to devastated worlds, seeking fragments of the original holo recording intact chips that might reveal the precise mechanism of the resonance pulse, or perhaps a fuller understanding of the psionic force that transcended death itself. A new dawn years past, where once the Empire's banners flew, now rose spires of glass and living crystal embodying cooperation, not coercion. Star lanes reopened under a shared council's watchful governance. Medical flotillas healed irradiated wastelands, planting seeds of new life in desolated soils. Ambassador Voss, no longer captain or enforcer, but seeker of truth, traveled these worlds, bearing witness to the fragile hope born from devastation. Yet even as civilization rebuilt, a lingering mystery endured. Had Yarek Talon truly perished on that basalt platform, or had his psionic resonance elevated him into some greater plane? Rumors swirled of glimpses, shadows flickering on distant moons, a child's laughter carried on cosmic winds, glimmering lights dancing in the darkest voids. The Council of Free Planets commissioned an expedition to the epicenter of the original broadcast Viridia, hoping to find answers among the scorched spires and cratered plains. Epilogue: the promise on the eve of the expedition's launch. Ambassador Voss stood at the amphitheater's ruined days, now cracked and overgrown with bioluminescent vines. She placed a hand on the cold stone, feeling the hum of residual energy beneath her fingertips. Above, the sky blazed with unfamiliar constellations, souvenirs of worlds once tethered to the Empire. Now free to chart their own courses, she whispered into the silent wind, "Yarek Talon, your sacrifice ignited more than planets, it ignited us all." And in that moment, as the first sparks of dawn crested the jagged horizon, the stars themselves seemed to shimmer in assent. The galaxy had been forged anew in fire, tempered by loss, and guided by the memory of a boy who dared to defy. Ask Chatgt,